Bonjour mon petit chifle, Amber here, and I'm pretty sure I was wearing this bonnet in the last video that I uploaded, but that's okay. I finally have the energy to film some videos, and I'm not going to freak out about not dressing up or putting on a look the way I used to. We're just going to be comfortable, we're going to be cozy, and we're going to talk about some books a whole month late. Today is February 5th. And I'm finally sitting down, I'm finally ready to talk about my favorite books, my favorite reads of 2023. 2 months into 2024. Being that I'm a little late, also if my camera's crooked, I'm really sorry. I am fighting the viewfinder and the tripod right now. Sorry. Oh, I finally gathered all of my books that I want to talk about. They are not in any, they're in a vague order, but like not really until as always, the very last book. I'm going to try my very best to remember absolutely anything about these books or even why I liked them so much, and so we can have a proper discussion, but I make no promises. I'm also going to try not to talk too much because there are quite a few books to get through. And also 2023 was kind of weird for me. A lot of my year in general, not just reading year, was kind of just like I was like floating through books. So these are books that I actually had strong feelings about, remembered what happened when I finished, thought about after I finished, and would definitely read again. These are the ones that like actually made an imprint, I'm reading Eclipse right now, impact, whatever, on me. So first and foremost, I have to talk about Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement. I've had this on my TBR for ages. I think I finally got a physical copy of it, was it last year? Whenever Harriet's bookshop had the Marian Anderson pop-up, because that's where I got it from, because Marian Anderson was apparently, I'm related to Marian Anderson. Not that that matters. I picked this up, I think at the end of October, beginning of November, for obvious reasons. I felt like this was like a really good place to start. I definitely feel like if you want to start, it's not too late. It's not too late to start getting educated on what's going on in Palestine and Gaza. Particularly also, as a Black person, this book specifically, I definitely think is a place to start, because it really goes into how our struggle here as Black Americans is intertwined with the struggle of the people in Palestine and Gaza. I mean, it's a really quick read. It's just a bunch of essays. What I recommend is how I read it. Obviously, I had the physical copy because I wanted to make notes. But I also listened to the audiobook, which is narrated by Angela Davis. It made it really easier to consume and to hold on to what I was listening to. Everyone do your homework. Let's rub our brain cells together, and let's be functioning world citizens. Okay, so next few I have to talk, what a pivot. The next few I have to talk about are romance books. Contemporary romance books. The first one is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. This one had been recommended to me a bunch by my friend Ramila. She loves this book, and we have similar, I think I've talked about this a few times, we have very similar taste in books. So I'm like, if she loves it, I'll love it. And I did. I really enjoyed this one because there was a depth to the characters and their relationship. It took me a minute to get past the animosity between these two. This follows a couple, Nicholas and Naomi. They are engaged and they are completely miserable in this relationship. They each want an end to the engagement, but whoever calls off the engagement would have to pay for everything that's already been paid for. So they are basically at odds. There are hijinks ensuing as they try to make the other person more miserable enough to be the one to take the fall. But now, as they're finally being to be in themselves, and basically they're able to fall back in love, or fall in love with the real versions of themselves, especially when Nicholas moves them to this gorgeous house in the middle of the woods. So they're kind of like forced to be together, because while he is miserable in this engagement, he is willing to fight for their relationship. Anyway, I love this book a lot. I love the dynamic. I love how we work through their relationship. I love that basically we're on a journey with them, and they go through each of the love languages as they find their way to each other for real. I kind of want to read this again. I might read this again. The next two are by the same author. They're from like my current favorite romance series, and they are In the Weeds and Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison, the second and third in the Love Lights series. The first one is Love Light Farms, which was in my favorites last year. These books take place on a Christmas tree farm. The first book was Luca and Stella and Luca. Stella owns the farm. Luca is her best friend. Fake relationship, fake dating, to win a contest that would get them more, what's it called? More eyes on the farm, and I think there's a cash prize, blah blah blah. But that contest is hosted by Evelyn St. James, who is this huge social media like star influencer, and then her story is In the Weeds. Her and Beckett, who is a hot grumpy tattooed farmer who loves rescuing baby animals, is not very good with people, and is obsessed with space, and honestly is the perfect man for me. Hot tattooed farmer who wouldn't make me interact with people, who loves baby animals as much as I do, and rescuing animals the way I do. Loves plants. He has takes care of his plants, and is obsessed with space. Also, is he a Virgo? Because it's giving Virgo. And then this one follows Layla and Caleb. Layla is the like final bit of the trio of Stella, Beckett, and Layla, who run this farm. She is a baker, and she runs the bakehouse on the farm. And Caleb was a cop in the first book, but thank God BK Beck said, we're not doing that. So Caleb is a Spanish teacher. He comes in every single day to get his croissant and his coffee. Is it the hazelnut coffee, or is that Luca? Anyway, his coffee. Every week he buys a cake, a fancy cake, just so he can go see Layla and talk to her, because he's in love with her. They each have not been able to basically find a person that is right for them. And to figure out what they're doing wrong, they decide to use each other as practice to help them be better in relationships and prepare, like, date, you know? Mind you, Caleb's in love with Layla. Let's start there. They're very cute, and there are a lot of baked goods involved. Once again, this one has me really wanting to make strawberry shortcake. And I don't know, this series is like really messed with my standards, really messed with what I'm looking for. And the fourth and final book of this series comes out in a couple months. It's Business Casual, which follows Charlie, who is Stella's brother, and Nova, who is Beckett's sister. Nova's a tattoo artist. I feel like me and Miss Borison will be best friends, because, like, obviously, and she just announced that the first book in the next series comes out early next year, I believe. So these books also really help, like, inspire me, make me motivated to work on my romance projects. Okay, let's go back to fantasy. This year I read God Killer by Hannah Kaner, and this book was like quite different from like something I've read before. I think that's what I said about it. One, the cover's stunning. This follows Kissin. Kissina, is that her full name? She, as the title implies, is a god killer. She hunts gods because they've kind of gotten, they live in a world where there are gods, like low gods, high gods, and they kind of gotten like out of control. So she makes a living killing troublesome gods. Especially for her, it's like personal because her family was killed by the zealots of like the fire god, and it's kind of like a vengeance, revenge type thing. Long story short, that's until she finds a god that she cannot kill, Skedi, who is kind of like the companion to this little Knoll child whose family and like I think it's her whole like estate has been murdered. And so like somehow she gets drawn in, and like they're on the run from the assassins. She's like the only surviving person. She's like the heir now of this province, maybe, who knows. So they basically are on a quest. They have to travel to like the city, ruined city of the gods or something, to beg a, they are each going to beg a favor. They're also joined on this quest by I don't remember what the man's name is. What is that man's name? Elogast, who is a former guard or right hand to the king, and now he is retired and is a baker. So I love elements. I love a found family. I love a found family moment. And I love Kissin. I love the disability rep in here and how there's like not like a magical cure type thing. It's just Kissin being an icon, basically. I just really enjoy this. It's not that long. I am so excited for book 2. I already have, I hate to say this, I have 2 copies pre-ordered because I have like a copy to read and tab up and whatever, and I have the Waterstones special edition pre-ordered because it's very pretty. And I buy things when I'm sad. Anyway, God Killer. Oh, so in August, no, that was last year. I mean, that was 2022. I finally picked The Inheritance of Orchidea Divina back up, and I'm so glad that I waited and didn't force myself to finish it when I was doing my Zoraida Cordova reading vlog. If you haven't watched it, it's linked below, because I would have missed out on how much I enjoy this book. I love this book so much. If you like the family dynamics of Encanto, right? If you enjoy Water for Elephants, if you like any sort of like, if you like familial magic, crazy backstories, if you like celestial beings, I love the journey of the unraveling of Orchidea's story, her past. This follows, I realized I didn't tell you what this is. This follows, I think it's like 3 cousins are like the main characters, yeah. Oh no, those are the ones they manifest in. This follows cousins, the Montoya family. This follows the Montoya family. They are all invited back to the matriarch of their family, Orchidea Divina, to home, which she hasn't left since, you know, building her home there, much like Casita. When they come there and they find her, she's transformed into a tree. She gifts 3 of the cousins like a gift, and they start manifesting, and they have to unravel her story, the history, also why she is a tree, because one by one family members start to die. So there's like a curse involved as well. So they journey back to her ancestral home in Ecuador, which I believe is where Zoraida is from as well. I just loved this book. It was fantastical. It was magical. I loved the family element, like I said. The writing was beautiful. Had a great time. Had a great time. Speaking of books that I did not expect to love as much as I did, we have Thisa Foot by Jen Rose Nethercott. This follows the estranged Yaga siblings, Bellatine and Isaac. Belle is a woodworker, and Isaac's just kind of like a what were they called back in the day? Like a train hopping tramp, if you will, street performer. They each have a magic gift, while Isaac uses his to survive, basically. Bellatine's basically hiding hers because she's afraid of it. She's afraid of the magic and what it can do. They are brought back together when they inherit Thisa Foot, which is the house that has arrived in the US from their ancestral home in Europe. Yaga is in love with the house and the magic of the house, and I mean, it's a house on legs. It's a walking, like living house. You know? Isaac says she can have like his inheritance of the house if she agrees to take the house on the road and perform their family's puppet show again after, like, you know, they grew up and like, okay, I'm kind of done with that. We're past that. With the house, little unbeknownst to them, with the house also comes the Long Shadow Man, who has been stalking this house across the ocean, across generations, across time, basically, and is following them across their little theatrical tour, intent to destroy Thisa Foot, harm the Yagas. And this story on the surface is just like a little romp, but it really talks about like generational trauma. We go into talk about like the pogroms across Europe, you know, just the some of the darkest points in history. Ultimately, time, magic, and legacy must collide, erupting in a powerful conflagration to determine who gets to remember the past and craft a new future. There's so many good quotes, there's so many moments, and it's kind of like a really haunting story about, basically, like I said, generational trauma and like being haunted by the past and like the trauma, the atrocities like that are done to people, like the people who are left to live with the consequences, specifically people who live with the consequences of something they didn't live through but still carry that weight, you know, which is very, very relatable. But there are a lot of beautiful quotes. I don't remember the one I was looking for. I'll put it here. Okay, the next 3 books are all by the same author. 2 are, one's a reread, one is a continuation, a sequel. I read a lot of sequels this year. Like there are quite a handful of sequels that I'm about to talk about. The next few, I won't even say is necessarily a book, even though I do love all of these books, but it's definitely, oh no, it's not a reread. I read that book in 2023. Okay, so my point stands. It's not necessarily a favorite book per se, but definitely a new favorite author. It is a book because like all 3 of these make the favorite. But anyway, finally got into Margaret Owen this year, so let's chat. I read The Merciful Crow in God knows when, I don't know, early enough that I forgot that I read it in 2023 and thought that I reread it, but no, I read it in 2023 after having had this on my shelf for so long and putting it off, because I tell the story all the time every time I talk about this book. When I first read the premise of this book, I was kind of put off about reading it, only because the premise on the synopsis was similar to something that I was working on. So I didn't want to read it and unconsciously, subconsciously take from the book and copy things that I absorbed from the book without really realizing I didn't want it to influence it. But when I finally read the book, I realized aside from this, they're not the same at all, and I'm so glad I finally just sucked it up and read it, because this was so good. Why didn't y'all tell me this was this good? Like, come on, why are y'all being like this? So basically, a fugitive chieftain, a fugitive prince, I can't read it. A future chieftain, a fugitive prince, a 2 cunning bodyguard, and 1 grumpy gray tabby. Barf is an icon. This follows Fee, who is going to be the chieftain of her sect, I guess, of crows. This world, the casts are all like birds. So the crows are the lowest caste in this kingdom, and they are the only ones that can go untouched by the plague. I'm not describing this right, but like I don't want to, pallbearers is the word that keeps coming to my head, but that's not right. They're mercy killers. God, Jesus. As featured chieftain of a shunned caste of mercy killers, she relies on her wits, blah, 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 blah. Her crows take a case. Her father's the chieftain. And one day they're like, we gotta go to the castle. The prince is dead. The prince has the plague. But the truth is that Prince Jasimir, and Tavin, his bodyguard, have concocted this scheme to basically to fake Jazz's death, get him out of the castle, to save him from his stepmother. The crows are now kind of in a pact with the prince that if she ensures his safety and that he makes it onto the throne, he will protect the crows when he is king, which is obviously an offer that she can't pass up. Anyway, I love Fee. I love ruthless girls. I love ruthless, angry, vengeful girls. I love just like, how many times can I say I love the dynamic when describing a book? But Jazz and Tavin, and just, this was such a good read. I wish I could really go into more detail or had the notes from when I was reading. And then obviously back in December, I think, I finished the duology. Finally read The Faithless Hawk, and this was a pretty satisfying conclusion. The things that we discover and that Fee goes through, and just, I don't know how to describe it, but I just love these books. So if you want some good books, if you want to read a good duology that people aren't talking about the way they need to, get this one. And then I read, this is my last read of 2023, and I also count it as my first read of 2024 because I finished the last like 100 pages on New Year's Day. And it's Little Thieves, like I said, by Margaret Owen. First, love the cover. Also the illustrations throughout, which I believe Margaret did, are gorgeous. This one is a Goose Girl retelling. That's by the Grimms, right? I love a bit of Grimm fairy tales. This one follows Vanya, who is basically the goddaughter of both luck and death. They take her in when she's like the last born in her family, and her mother can't take care of her, and she's like bad luck, so she thrusts her on these two goddesses. But they demand a price that when she comes to a certain age, she will have to serve one of them, which means she runs away. She runs away and ends up a servant to Princess Giselle, whose family is awful and they are abusive to her. She and Giselle are friends at one point, and then there's like a betrayal. Long story short, when it's time for Giselle to marry the, I don't want to say king because that's not the phrase, but like essentially the leader of like their little province, kingdom, whatever. First off, her mother, Giselle's mother, somehow procures magic pearls that will alter her appearance to make her more attractive to the king. Vanya steals them, and Vanya steals her identity. So now she is living as Giselle, and Giselle is living God knows where, God knows how. But the king is actually awful, and in her spare time she runs heists as the Pennygeist, is that what it's called? You know, she steals from the rich, all to fund her great escape. She's one heist away from finally being able to be free of this castle life, this king man who's awful, and also her godmothers and their ultimatum when she's cursed by a goddess and starts sprouting jewels out of her body. And if she does not find a way to break the curse by the next full moon, I believe, she'll die. The jewels will take over and she'll die. You have that on top of this pretentious, overeager, too smart for his own good junior prefect who is supposed to be cracking the case about the Penny, he's like on her tail. There's so many elements, but this was fun. This was emotional. I actually cried quite a few times reading this book. I also really love the storytelling element and the little interludes between, where basically it's like each interlude's like a different tale, where Vanya is now telling the next turn basically in the story, which is also accompanied by the gorgeous art, the gorgeous drawings. Really love Emmerich, who is our junior prefect. I love the relationship between him and Vanya and how it develops. I also love the journey from friends to enemies, back to like allies to friends between her and Giselle. I love Rania, who is the goddess who curses Vanya and Rania? Anyway, her daughter, who is a magical half demigod basically, who can shapeshift and is a cat a lot of the time. I don't think anything, if anything that I just said convinced you to read this book, you're a real one. I gotta stop babbling because like this is too long. Speaking of sequels, I finally read Redemptor by Jordan Ifweka, which is the sequel to, and conclusion to, what is that book called? Raybearer, which was one of my faves last year. Love Raybearer so much. This one was quite the journey. We deal a lot with Tarsai dealing with like guilt and anxiety, and basically the monarchy's now shifting into like a new regime, new leading. I also didn't tell you what this is about, but I'm not gonna tell you what this is about, but
hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to
read Raybearer and then read Redemptor. I don't like, everything that I was gonna say is gone now, so I'm sorry that this doesn't get a good conversation, but or a good. I also read Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn, which is the sequel to one of my favorite books of all time ever, Legendborn. First of all, this book's huge. Let's start there. I did a full reading vlog, spoilery reading vlog, reading this, so if you'd like to watch it, it's down below. This took me on such an emotional journey. This took me on such an emotional journey. And there's some characters that I want dead. I want dead that aren't dead yet. There are some plot lines that are stressing me out so bad. Bree Matthews deserves better. Selwyn Kane deserves better. I love how much more Alice is in this story. That's my girl. I love her. I love her and Bree. Love William always. And I like the new character. What's that man's name? Valak. So I'm interested to see how the dynamic shifts going forward. Also, Tracy, I know you hear it all the time, but Tracy, I saw someone on Twitter say sometimes polyamory is the answer and Bree-Sel and Nick's relationship is the question. Bloodbound comes out in 2025, so this is about to be the longest year of my life, and I know I'm gonna get hurt. I know. I love the further journey into like the ancestral magic and Bree really learning from others in that, with that magic, and her like really connecting with her own personal lineage and ancestry. I just love, you know what, happy Black History Month. So another book that I finally read that I've been meaning to forever is A Dowy of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I read this in October when I was reading a bunch of vampire books, and I read Dracula I started Dracula and then I put it down and read this, and then I picked Dracula back up, and I'm kind of glad that if I had read Dracula first, I probably wouldn't have cared that much. This book follows basically Dracula's, or this Dracula-esque type character. He's never really named in the book, which obviously is intentional because it's not about him. This follows his wives, his consorts, and honestly, I get it now. I get it. I put it off for a while because honestly this is so stupid, because I wanted the original cover. I just really didn't like this one compared to the other one. It's grown on me. It's whatever. There's nothing I can really do about it. So this book really talks about like toxic abusive relationships and obsession and just like the effects of that and the damage, and but also like eventually taking your power back. And I love the trio, Constanza, Magdalena, and what's that man's name? Is he Nikolai also? Perhaps. But it's just so vivid and dark and just gothic and like seductive and just sexy, kind of everything you'd want in a vampire story, but also like some really important kind of like heavy themes involved as well, you know? And just like escaping toxic obsessive love. Anyway, I get it. ST Gibson has 2 books coming out this year, and I'm ready for both of them because I'm kind of, I want to say I'm obsessed, but I can't say I'm obsessed off of one book, can I? Yes, I can, because I'm about to say that about the next author in the next book too. So my favorite book of 2023, and the last book I'm going to talk about, broke me. It broke me, but it was so beautiful and so... As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Thisa Foot is one of the best books I've ever read, like, in my life. I'm not going to describe it, like, at all properly, so I'm just going to read it to you. It just says, "This is my land, and just like the lemon trees that have been growing here for centuries, spilled blood won't stop us." Salama Kassab was a pharmacy student when the cries for freedom broke out in Syria. She still had her parents and her big brother. She still had her home and an average teenager's life. Now Salama volunteers at a hospital in Homs, helping the wounded who flood through the doors daily. Secretly, though, she is desperate to find a way out of her beloved country before her best friend and sister-in-law, Layla, gives birth. As her desperation grows, her PTSD takes physical shape in the form of companion, Cough, who haunts her every move. But even with Cough pressing her to leave, Salama is torn between loyalty to her country and her will to survive. Salama must contend with bullets and bombs, military assaults, and her shifting sense of morality before she might finally breathe free. And when she crosses paths with the boy she was supposed to meet one fateful day, she starts to doubt her resolve in leaving home at all. Salama must learn to see the events around her for what they truly are, not a war, but a revolution, and decide how she too will cry for Syria's freedom. Perfect for fans of The Book Thief and Salt to the Sea, the stunning speculative debut burns with the fires of hope, romance, and possibility, a love letter to Syria and its people. And this book was heartbreaking, but hopeful, and just kind of whimsical somehow, and just, but also very heavy and crushing. And I spent so much of this book inconsolable and like just to the point, crying to the point where it was a little concerning. I finished this book and could not sleep because like I felt like I was gonna be sick. It was just a emotional roller coaster. Like 1 minute it's like intense, dark, heartbreaking, and then you just have like a beautiful, lighthearted, levity moment, sweet moment between Salama and Keenan, and I just love them so much, my little lemon babies. I love them so much. I would do anything for them. All I want is for them to be safe and happy. This world is really messed up, and honestly, I don't have anything else to say after that. Zulfa, the way the world's messed up, but like she still was able to weave in hope and just like, ooh, I sound like I'm about to cry. Anyway, I love this book with my whole heart. I'll read anything that Zulfa writes. I owe her my firstborn child. I gotta go. So those are the books that I read in 2023 and loved. I'm gonna have such a hassle editing this. Thank you for watching if you did. Let me know what your favorite reads of 2023 were. if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like me, feel free to subscribe. All my places are down below so you can follow me, and I'll follow you back, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.